Channel NITT viewers, I am DS and welcome to another episode on Channel NITT. So as you can see, today there's something very different about the set behind me, right? This is because I'm actually on a 2-day staycation at Marina Bay Sands, and this is a good time for me to also film as well, so that I can give the viewers a different set or different background for a change.
I'll still change my underwear if that's okay with you.
Okay, we have been talking a lot on cognitive functions and cognitive stacks, so I think this is a very good time to start talking about loops. Loops!
Choose partners, skip to Maloo, my darling.
So since I'm an ENTJ, so I will start talking about the ENTJ when in a loop. What happens when one individual is on a loop? The first question is, what is a loop? Now, if you are very familiar with the cognitive functions, you will know that we have 4 cognitive functions arranged in a cognitive stack. So we have the first function, which is the dominant function, followed by the second function, your co-pilot, which is your auxiliary function, and your third function is tertiary function, your last function is the inferior function. Under normal circumstances, in a healthy situation, your dominant function and your auxiliary function, which I call the pilot and the co-pilot, will feed you with input on how to make judgment and how to perceive the surrounding around you. Sometimes your co-pilot may be sacked because you feel that your co-pilot is not doing a good job. This is when you might engage more of your tertiary function or your third function. And because the second function is bypassed, you will use the first function and the third function only. This is when you go on a loop. In the case of the ENTJ, if we decide to sack our co-pilot because we cannot trust the co-pilot anymore, then we will use predominantly the first function and the third function, which is TE and SE. You can say that in this case, the ENTJ is in a TeSe loop. So let me give you an example when an ENTJ might go into a TeSe loop. So first of all, they must sack the co-pilot, which is NI in this case. That means that the ENTJ cannot trust NI anymore. So they decide to bypass it altogether because it is not functioning properly. So take for example, let's say an ENTJ goes on a gambling trip. First, he tries to predict numbers. The intuition is not working again and again. When he buys big, it comes out small. When he buys small, it comes out big. So he keeps losing. Usually the ENTJ, when gambling, might use intuition to bet. Sometimes the intuition is really failing again and again. This makes the ENTJ somewhat frightened and decides to sack the NI instead. When that happens, SE will rise to become the co-pilot. This is no good. This is definitely no good because now with TE and SE together, both extroverted functions, the ENTJ might become very impulsive, may start to gamble much more than usual, and lose even more. Let me give you another example when an ENTJ might go on a TeSe loop. So we are going to use an example related to dating and love. When an ENTJ likes a particular person, it is based on impression. So the impression is that this person can be his future partner. So what happens? He tries to pursue. If again and again, this impression fails him because the partner that he chooses does not like him back, or they go on date for a while, however it doesn't work out, what actually happens is the ENTJ may start to doubt his intuition because it felt correct, but it didn't turn out well.
I don't like you.
In desperation, the ENTJ will sack the co-pilot NI in this case and go on a TeSe loop. What happens? he might go on a dating rampage, trying to date 4-5 people at the same time. This is like casting a wide net, because last time he tried to focus on one person, it didn't work. Now he wants to get attached badly and he cast a wide net. Dating 4 or 5 people at the same time and hoping that one of them actually gets attached to him. This is very unhealthy. Alternatively, you might also find that an ENTJ in a TeSe loop might end up starting to sleep around, because the extroverted function, SE, makes him go very outward.
Boy, just push that thing, push it harder back on me.
Both TE and SE are extroverted functions, and they bring the ENTJ very outward, which is not usually the case. The ENTJ can be considered a very introverted type of extrovert. Of course, this is very unhealthy. Why? Because the ENTJ becomes impulsive, he also becomes selfish and self-centered. So when you have an ENTJ in a TeSe loop, sometimes he might even come across as an ESTP if you have typed him at that time. Of course, there is a mistype. I have another example to illustrate the TeSe loop for the ENTJ. Sometimes the ENTJ feels that something is going to happen because of introverted intuition. However, when he waits and nothing happens, he might start to doubt his intuition. When that happens, SE might take over. How does it manifest itself? The ENTJ might start to go around hopping from person to person to get information. So to make it more concrete, suppose this ENTJ is very confident that his project is going to take off. And it might take 2 years to take off. So he works hard and he is patient, but after 2 years, or even 2.5 years, he does not see that there are signs of this project taking off. And he is very invested in it. What happens? He might start to go around asking people for opinion, because NI actually gives the ENTJ some bearing and a direction. When he sets NI, there is no more focus, no more direction. He is lost without bearing. So he gets this bearing by using SE to ask around. If he believes in fortune telling, he will go from fortune teller to fortune teller to get this bearing back. Because he does not trust his own NI anymore, so he has to depend on other people's information and even other fortune tellers' NI. So as you can see, the ENTJ in the TeSe loop is very unhealthy. So what can you do to get out of the TeSe loop? Luckily for me, as an ENTJ, yes, I do get into TeSe loops, but I get a hold of myself very soon because I know that the TeSe loop is unhealthy. One of the only ways to do it is to really trust your gut feeling and intuition. Sometimes the intuition might go wrong. It is natural. You can't just pick a deck of cards and just like draw 5 cards and then you get a 4 of a kind. This is very rare. So sometimes your intuition might fail you. And if you are okay with that, just continue trusting your intuition, knowing that it always has you there. What to say? So what you can do is to just trust your intuition. So down this road, I will be talking about the loops for the other MBTI types. Do watch out for that. If you have enjoyed this episode, do like. And if you have not subscribed, do consider subscribing so that we can continue to bring more value to you. Okay, that's all I have for this episode, and I'll see you in my next episode. Goodbye!